Good morning. I am Anton Stettner, and together this morning we are going to go through the Seattle Metro. We're going to look at King County. We're going to look at Snohomish County. We will also look at whatever prices you want to look at. So let me know if there's a specific city or a zip code. Otherwise, what we're going to do is we're just going to go through the stats together. And then, as always, drop any questions that you have right there into the good old chat, and just let me know kind of whatever you are thinking. What I want to start with today is I want to start with the 10-year Treasury. Because the 10-year Treasury is really what affects all debt. And when I say all debt, I mean all debt. The 10-year Treasury affects credit cards, auto debt, student loan debt. And of course, what we care about inside the real estate industry is it affects the 30-year fixed mortgage. You can take the 10-year Treasury and you can simply add 2.5 to whatever this number is, and that's what the 30-year fixed debt is today. And so people keep saying, oh, the market is it's slowing down. But what's happening is debt. This is over the last 6 months. You can see it's actually starting to trend in a downward direction. Debt is going to continue to get cheaper. And as debt gets cheaper here in the Seattle Metro, what's going to happen? Our market will light on fire. More bidding wars will come back. Cap rates will start compressing. The more sellers will end up listing their property, so there'll be more inventory available. But it hasn't started yet. So this is just at the tip of the iceberg. The other thing that happens is when debt is above 6.5%, the market slows down. When debt is at 6.5 or below, the market seems to be totally fine. But as of yesterday, it was basically just a little over 6.8. So that's part of the slowness that you're feeling in the market. What's also interesting is we kind of got like this tale of two markets where some things are just flying off the shelf. And then some things are sitting, and we're kind of going back to a more normal days on market. We're returning to a more normal market. The problem is lots of real estate brokers have not been in the industry forever. So I've been here since 2003. And so this will be my 22nd year selling real estate. We've done thousands of transactions here in the Seattle Metro. And then I'm a very active purchaser of real estate. So always buying. PS brokers, we're looking for deals right now. Send them to me. Land deals, 5-acre pieces. And when I say 5-acre pieces, I'm talking in Snohomish County on a 200,000 square foot lot or bigger with a house that's beat up. I really want to buy one of those right now. But the market's going to continue to slowly heat up as rates trend down. And if you go and look at the media and look at what they've been saying about, the Fed and President Trump, like I'm just going to Google this right now in the background just to make this point, really clear for what I'm trying to say. Trump pushes for influence over the Fed. Trump finally fed up with Putin. The real reason Trump wants to fire the Fed. Trump has a point. And it goes on and on and on. And what people are saying right now, or what they're asking is the Fed getting political? Because inflation has come down. And as inflation has trended down, we are in the twos for the Fed's preferred metric, basically in the mid twos for PCE. Why has the Federal Reserve not cut rates? And then the Fed meeting minutes just came out, and the Fed meeting minutes, you're hitting an inflection point in the economy when the Fed meeting minutes start to show how all the members of the Federal Reserve are fracturing. You had two that said they were ready to cut rates, which was probably Bowman and the other one, which kind of seemed to be gunning for Powell's job right now. And you had multiple who said no hikes this year, and then multiple that said hikes later this year. In other words, it's not completely unanimous. So even the Fed knows that rate cuts are starting to be right around the corner. But let's dig into the actual data and have a conversation. So this is the whole state of Washington, just real real quick. The entire NWMLS, which makes up about 80% of the state of Washington. And you can see the average sales price is trending, slightly up. Now, these bottoms here are always in the winter. This is when you do this on a monthly basis. I like to look at it kind of like in the raw data. When you look at the rolling 12, you can see, the majority of the state is trending up. Okay, well, let's go look at new listings because new listings have been all over the media, right? Let's look at the monthly data. So new listings in June of 2025 for, once again, about 80% of the state, 12,381 of them. Let's make this a little bigger for you. Well, last June, we were at 10,882. So that really is about almost 300 more listings than the previous. Let's go through King County and start looking at that. And if there's any data that you would like to see or something you'd like me to go over, always just let me know and I'm happy to review it. So let's look at sales price. So the median sales price in King County last month was 908. The previous high was 900 in April. And then we had 880 in May of 2024. And of course, right before the Federal Reserve raised rates, we were at about 876. This is up 4.2% month on month. Let's look at the average. Average 1.175. I'm going to be really blunt with you. That blows my mind. That's almost $1.2 million was the average price in King County last month. That's up almost 6% versus the previous June. When the market is rising like this in the face of almost 7% interest rates, what I want you to understand is as the rates come down, if it's rising at 5.8% in King County, it will rise even faster as the debt gets cheaper. That is the thing to know here. That's the thing to understand also for investors. Right now is investor season. This isn't a wait because as rates come down, investor deals will become even harder to find. Let's go look at new listings. New listings up 16.8%. Looks like they peaked there in May. And of course, we peaked last May also. In 2023, we peaked in June. So already kind of seeing the peak for the year. So the peak for the year in listings generally happens in that spring market. Everyone lists in the spring. It's when the most inventory comes on the market. It's also when we see the highest rise in prices overall. Let's look at homes for sale. Number of homes for sale is dramatically up. Okay, I mean, this is significant. 46%, or basically 7,500. Let's go to last June. Last June was 5,093. So when the media is talking about how the number of active inventory is rising, it is rising. But let's look at it in a historical perspective, because the media tries to scare you by using these big numbers, but the historical perspective provides a better look at the long-term view of this data. So going all the way back to the Great Financial Crisis, you can see that King County hit almost 20,000 in July of 2008. And then with 7,500, we are back to, right above 2019. Yeah, in the latter part of 2018. So this is more of what you call a normal market. This is the market returning to normal. But I want you to ask yourself this question. What happens as soon as we have the trade war under control and rates come down? Because rates are coming down. They're just not coming down as fast as we want. But sometime over the next 2 years, possibly over the next 3 years, we do know they will come down. And the answer is this little bit of extra inventory will get gobbled up by the buyers who have been sitting on the sidelines, just simply waiting for the affordability to come back to the market. Let's look at pendings. Well, pendings are also up. Actually, let's make that time frame a bunch smaller. So pendings are up 8.9%. But once again, homes for sale is up, almost 47%. So active inventory is growing, which creates more opportunity on the buyer's side. Closed sales up 8.5, which is, kind of reflects the exact pending number. Days on market up slightly to 23. So what that means, though, when you think about it, is the average is 23. That means there are properties above it that are selling in longer days on market, and there are ones below it. This is the average of what's happening. But 23 days is over 3 weeks. That number is higher than it has been in the past. So this is the local Seattle Metro cooling, but it's not crashing. What's happened is the media and kind of social media in general has caused us to conflate and misunderstand ideas. Market cooling does not mean crashing. And in the case of the Seattle Metro, this is more of us returning to normal. Let's go look at supply next. As always, you guys got questions, drop it in the chat. I'm happy to answer your questions. So you're at 3.7 months worth of supply. 3.7 months worth of supply, below 5 months, we call a seller's market. 6 months and above, we would call a buyer's market. But this is no longer the white hot, everything's on fire seller's market. So the market is once again cooling and showing signs of cooling. I also love to look at this one. This one's called the percent of original list price. It's basically like, what did they list it for and what is it actually selling for? Traditionally speaking, here in the Seattle Metro, this one is about 98% is the number. And so when you're above 98, it means you're still seeing bidding wars. So there's still slight opportunities for the right properties to be in bidding wars here in King County. But it also says if a property was listed for $100,000, it sold for $98,900. So the average buyer is getting a little bit off of the price. What are ways that you could go find more off the price? Look for higher days on market. Look for price reductions. What happens is if the seller didn't price it correctly, or the agent didn't price it correctly for that matter, generally speaking, they're going to start high and they're going to scoot down too low inside of the market, creating an opportunity and a deal for the buyer or the investor. Let's look at price per square foot to finish this out, and then we will sneak over to Snohomish County and I'll drop through any data that anyone wants to look through. So still rising, not surprising. $561 a square foot was the average last month in King County. The average property took 12 showings to go to pending, but the average listing only received 4.5 showings. So the thing to be thinking about is if your property is positioned correctly, if it's marketed correctly, if it's received only 5 showings and it's in great condition, then the market is essentially rejecting your price and demonstrating to you that you are priced above the market. We're selling a property right now in, actually, I won't say where it is, but this property is priced on the high side, and we've received offers that are definitely below the list price. And this is kind of in the Lake Washington area. So I said to the seller, I said, hey, this is the market telling you that we are priced above the market. The market is always giving us signals. It's just a function of if we want to dig into the data and if we want to emotionally acknowledge what the data is telling us. All right, let's go look at Snohomish County. If I could spell Snohomish correctly, there we go. Snohomish County, and see what's happening there. So let's go look at sales price. So the median sales price in Snohomish County was basically the same as it was last June. Look at that. Okay. Now remember, median means the middle of the market. Let's look and see what the average is doing. The average is up 1%. So basically 836. And last June, it was 828. Let's look at it on a rolling 12. On a rolling 12, up 6.4% when you compare them all together. Oh, you know what? I apologize. I wanted to mention this other data for King County. So I'm going to flip back real quick and then I'll pop right back over. If you look at this data right here, so this is looking at on the rolling 12, but they do a very good job with the median year to date and the average year to date. I like how, because this really smooths the data out, but it's showing that King County is up in median price, basically 3%, and then 1.4% in the average price when you look at on the rolling 12 year to date. You also see what we were talking about, the days on market rising and the number of new listings rising and the active inventory rising. All right, let's switch back to Snohomish County real quick. Let's drop this data back into monthly. Let's look at new listings. So basically 1,500 listings in June. Let's look at last June. Last June was basically 1,300. So about 200 more, up 12%. Homes for sale. So the same thing that you're seeing there in King County. Look at that just rocket up. So when active inventory rockets up, days on market follow, because what happens is there's simply more choices and the demand isn't rocketing up. So you'll see days on market rising. That is normal. Agents take a breath. Sellers take a breath. It's not the market crashing. It is the market cooling and slowing. But that is a dramatic rise in inventory. And so what we'll watch is we'll watch days on market. We'll watch new listings. We'll watch active listings. But generally speaking, when you're looking at it, this is the peak. We've already seen the peak for the year. So generally speaking, it will trend down from here, which should start to eat into that inventory. But we will see. We'll see where the market takes us. We're in a little bit of uncharted territory right now. All right, let's look at the number of homes for sale. That was what we were just looking at. That's up 41%. Pendings only up 5.7. Closed sales, about flat. So pendings will show up, of course, in the closed, because you got to be under contract before you go to closing. Days on market, 23, so very similar to King County. Once again, about 3 weeks. And so you have to be asking yourself, if I haven't sold in 3 weeks, am I getting near a price reduction? You would then also want to look at the shows to pending, and the shows to pending right now was 10 shows to pending for Snohomish County, and each listing only got 4.5. So same example, just a couple less showings in Snohomish County versus King County. So let's go look at supply. There is less supply in Snohomish County at 2.8 months, but see how supply is going up. Now, look at this. Supply generally peaks. Look at there. It peaked in July, peaks in September. So supply will peak, historically speaking, sometime here right by the end of summer. So you're probably seeing peak supply right now. Understand, because it's been just absolutely beautiful outside here in the Seattle metro. We've been having those beautiful blue days. We've all been at the beach or hiking in the mountains. And when it happens like this, part of the reason the inventory rises is because it's so pretty out. And for the first time ever, we're like, whoa, we got to get out. We got to enjoy the sun because it's so beautiful. And the reason it starts slowing down, and when the kids go back to school and after the Labor Day holiday, is the weather starts cooling down. And so supply starts dipping all the way until winter and then picks back up again in the spring. Let's look again. All right. So percent of original list price, 98.5, which is still very much in line. One thing to understand when you look at that list price right there, where we're right around 98% here in Snohomish County, that means that some of the best properties will absolutely have a bidding war on them when they're in the right location or they're in beautiful condition or whatever it may be. And others will sit there, and the average buyer is getting 1.5% off of the list price. It's also crazy to think that the list price in Snohomish County is $836,000. All right, let's look at the price per square foot. Price per square foot is $433 a square foot. I had mentioned how days on market is a way to look for deals. You can also look at price per square foot. So if you're going to look at a large scale data set, what you can do is you could take like all of Snohomish County, export it to Excel, resort by days on market to get the highest days on market, and then take the price per square foot and then resort by price per square foot. And the thing that has the lowest price per square foot with the highest days on market might be a deal. Why? Because that property provides a lot of square footage that is priced cheaper than the competition around it, and it's been sitting on the market for a while. That property might need rehab, it might have some other condition, but it also might be a deal. So happy hunting. I'm telling you the tricks that make us, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars here in real estate. We already quickly talked about shows to pending. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to look at the metrics for the rolling 12. The rolling 12, the median sales price was basically $790. The average was $896, up 1.9 and 3.6%. Days on market was 25. I don't look at the condo market as much. Because I believe the residential market always drives what's actually happening, and then the condo market just kind of lags. And what I really don't like about condos, I haven't liked in the past, but I'm disliking even more today, is your insurance for condos and the HOA fees have been just dramatically rising. And that's going to continue here into the foreseeable future. So just be careful in the condo market today, because expect HOA fees to continue to rise because inflation was so high. And we haven't seen all the problems with even insurance show up. I put this out on my story on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok, but I want to bring it to you, our listeners, our subscribers here today also, and that is insurance on the investor side has been dramatically rising. So people with 4 units or more have been seeing their policies, so multifamily, get canceled here in Washington because 2 of our major carriers just stopped carrying insurance for these large multifamilies. So that's one. Number 2, because some of these insurance premiums are dramatically rising, when you have multiple units, it could be massively eating into your cash flow. Right now is the time to go shop your insurance and see if you can get a better deal. Number 3, a bunch of our investors and then us personally have been canceled for debris on the roof, for noticeable items near the property. So what I want to recommend is go out to your rentals, even go to your own personal property, and just make sure that you can't see things touching the property, like a barbecue on the back or a pool, things that cause hazards. And make sure the roof looks clean. People are getting canceled over this stuff right now. And then number 2, the other one is we actually have a property in the eviction process, and we got canceled because it was in the eviction process. And we're struggling to go get new insurance. The last one I want you to pay attention to in insurance right now is your public liability umbrella. Most of our investors their public liability umbrellas are going up between 20 to 50% to renew that premium. Why? Because so many claims have happened. Todd, attached versus detached condos. You got a spot specifically you want to look at that in, or something that you're thinking about where we could dig into that data together? Like, give me more. And while you're doing that, let's look at Pierce County to see what's happening in Pierce, and then we'll go real quick also through Skagit. But Todd, tell me more about what you're thinking there, brother. So throw that up on the screen. Sales price in Pierce County up 5.5% on the average, median up 1.8, new listings 11, homes for sale 24. So Pierce County Pierce County is not seeing the jump in inventory as much as you're seeing in Snohomish and in King County. I find that very interesting. Part of that is probably due to the affordability there, and then also there's just not as many transactions that happen there in Pierce County versus Snohomish and King, just due to sheer population and jobs. Pending's up 17.6%. Oh, Pierce County's kicking butt. Look at that. Closed sales. Okay, about the same, but man, pending's up. Good job, guys. Days on market, 31. So it's a little bit slower than Snohomish County and King County. Months of supply of inventory, 3.4 months of supply. Percent of original list price, 98.3, kind of as expected. Price per square foot, $330. Okay, let's look at Skagit real quick too. Skagit sales price. Okay, now the reason this data is so choppy like this is you have to understand there are just, once again, there's not as many sales. So as you start to really drill down into a neighborhood or into an area, the data starts to give you noise because there's not as many transactions happening to kind of smooth out the overall data. But the average sales price in Skagit was $633,000. Wow, it just blows my mind. 595,000 was the median, 9.8% up. And let's look at this one on the rolling 12 to see smooth the data. So up 5% when you smooth the data. Okay. And the median up 6.3. Part of the reason to think about that for Skagit is that is showing affordability there in the area. And it's crazy to say that affordability. Oh, Benji, you just hit us with the comment. Exactly what I was thinking, brother. It's crazy to think that 600 is affordability, and that's like pulling people up into Skagit County. Why are prices so out of control here in the Seattle Metro? It's really simple. We haven't built enough homes. Why? During the great financial crisis, all the lending criteria changed, but the land development criteria got stricter and the permitting criteria got stricter. So all we've done is we've used government intervention to massively constrain supply, which prevents housing from getting out quickly. I can tell you stories of how over here in Snohomish County, I've been working on a project for 5 years. How in Skagit County, I've been specifically in the city of Mount Vernon, I've been working on one for 3. I've got another one I'm working on for 2.5. These take way too long to get done. All right, let's throw back up Skagit. Homes for sale. Let's take off the rolling 12. Look at the raw data. Up 14%. Okay. Not as much as Snohomish and King. Pendings down just slightly at 3%. Closed sales down just slightly. Days on market 38 is the average. Percent of original list price 97. You know what? I'm just curious. What's Island look like right now? Let's go to Island. Yeah, you are nailing it. It's when people go, why does everything cost so much here in the Seattle Metro? It's because everything takes so long for us to get through the land development and the permitting timeline. And what people don't realize is, like, then they took away natural gas, then they increased the energy credit requirements. All of this adds to the cost of housing. This is why even with these super high interest rates, like we had shown before, with these super high interest rates, what you see is you still see the market appreciating even in the face of these super high interest rates. Why? It's because of the massive lack of supply. If you want rentals to be cheaper, if you want houses to be cheaper, go talk to your city planning commission, okay? and the city council members and the county planning commission and the county council members and your local mayor and your local council members that are on the county. I do that on a regular basis. I'm involved in a political action committee that fights for you and for housing in our area. And we are able to help just a little bit, but it barely makes a dent in the overall process. Okay, let's look at Island because I want to see what this data is looking like. Sales price, median sales price in Island County, $600,000. Wow. Average sales price, $670. But down slightly because see, once again, there's not as much data. Let's look at it on the rolling 12. So on the rolling 12, I think it gives us a better look. It's up 3.7%. And it's up 4.6% in the median. New listings. Let's look at it on the monthly. Already peaked. Yeah, and look at that. So Island County generally peaks. It peaks a little bit earlier than King County and Snohomish County, which would make sense. There's just more population in those counties and not as much going to Island. And when you're going to Island, you've got to, want to be on Island time. Pending sales, down just a little bit. Closed sales, down just a little bit. Days on market, 42. Month supply. So, look at that. Okay. So there's 5.6 months of supply there in Island County. That means parts of Island County are most definitely in a buyer's market. And we actually just got a amazing buyer, a property out here on Camano Island. And we were able to, and this is kind of reflective in this data, we were able to get money off of the price. We were able to get a good inspection timeline. And then we were able to get a credit for all of the repairs that were necessary. So at the end of the day, that buyer got an amazing deal. And why? Well, you're looking at it right there on the chart. It's because it's almost 6 months worth of inventory. Island County is in a buyer's market. Go where the opportunities are. Let's look at the percent of original list price, 98.6 on the monthly. Let's see if the rolling 12 tells us anything different. Nope, tells us 98. Price per square foot, $412. Okay. Well, let me know if you guys have any other areas that you want to look at. Todd, you said attached versus detached condos. That is kind of like, it's kind of hard to do like that level of data. So, because what happens when you want to do attached versus detached condos, you've got to go in and you got to select a specific area and you've got to hand pick through the data. And when we look at Snohomish County, just condos in general, right? So this is going to be all condos, which is going to include attached versus detached. There's not going to be as much, so I'm going to kick this over to the rolling 12. You can see the median price in Snohomish County for condos. So see, I have condos selected, no beds. Okay. Also, we could select new construction. So the median price was $526, up 4.2%. The average price was $603. Now let's just go new construction only. Oh, that dramatically changes these numbers. Look at that. Okay. So that was on that one. Yep. Well, this tells you the story right there. You can see that there has been a reduction in price. That is severely down for new construction condominiums. And that would include both the attached and the detached, like you had asked, Todd. And then let's look at the average, and the average does the same thing, basically peaking last year and then trending in a slight, downward direction. I mean, based on this data, there is probably some opportunity in certain parts of the condominium market that are new construction. Oh, I love it. I love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Let's go back to the monthly. Yeah, not as much. I mean, this is also why you got to smooth the data out. So new listings, 11, 5, closed sales, There's just not that much of it. So you got to smooth the data out to get the overall trend. Yeah, well, that's not surprising. The inventory in that specific space is dramatically rising. That's up 56%. So in the condominium new construction space in Snohomish County, once again, attached or detached, what you're seeing is that the amount of inventory is dramatically rising. What that means is the number of sales is slowing down, which once again means opportunity. So if you're like a payment sensitive buyer, you should be looking for a builder who's going to go do a buy down in today's market, buy your rate down, and get you into the price range that you feel affordable. Now, when you do a buy down, unless it's a permanent buy down, never do a buy down where you don't feel comfortable with the reset, because always assume you're going to have to go through the reset period. That's a mistake buyers make. It's a mistake agents make. Assume you're going to have to go through the reset. Now, understand, I may have some trauma from 2008, 9, and 10 when we saw all those resets happening. But in my mind, arms always reset. Oh, Benji, are the Mariners going to the playoffs this year? We'll get close. It's a schmaybe, but we're not going to go all the way. We just don't have it in us yet. But we love them. We love all of our sports teams, even if we're not making it. Okay, back to closed sales. Let's look at closed sales on a monthly basis. So I'd say, right here's the 20 line. So they're closing about 20 on a regular basis. Days on market, average 26. Not that bad. Okay, month supply. So there's really, according to this data, there's actually not that. Let's go to rolling 12. Yeah, there's not that much supply, but and it's probably because they're holding back on supply. They're probably holding on the construction of it. Let's look at percent of original list price. 99.2. Let's go to monthly. 99. Yeah, they're still okay. This is interesting. I might have to retract part of the statement. Because the original list to sales price is not coming down, what also may be happening is the builders may be building smaller units. And because the units are smaller, it pulls down the average sales price. It pulls down the median sales price. And that's what you're seeing show up in the data. And the price is not dropping as dramatically as you would think. They're just simply building smaller units in 2025 versus what they did in 2024. So the problem with data and just social media in general is you look at it and your heart and your emotions, you see one thing and you go, oh, this is how it is. But we just showed you an exact example of why you need to go a couple layers deep in order to be able to figure out what the data actually means. So to be honest, if I need to figure out exactly what this means, I'd probably have to drive around to all the new construction sites. I'd probably have to talk to the site agents. I'd have to look at my own new construction properties and go, why are they selling? Why are they not selling? Yes, I am in this data set as a builder. And you got to analyze it with a fine-tooth comb and go a few layers deep. That's how you really answer these questions. But the market, I will continue to say, is still outperforming expectations. I love it. Does anyone else have any other thing that they want to go over or any other? So I'm going to take the condos off and let's look in Snohomish County at just new construction in general. But if you have any questions, just drop it right there into the chat. Let's dig through new construction in general. So new construction in general in Snohomish County. Last month, 804 was the median, and the average was 929,683. That is such a high average price. That's almost $1 million for the average new construction home in Snohomish County. Now realize what's happening is South County is, of course, pulling that number up. Because in Bothell, for example, you could have stuff that's priced at 1.2, 1.5, 2.5, that's new construction, that's pulling this average sales price up. But it is still amazing to see how high this average price is for the county. New listings, down just a little bit. Okay. Basically about 2,100. Homes for sale, up, once again, up significantly. I will say it. I think there's opportunity in new construction right now. There's opportunity to write some offers, get some closing costs, maybe get some buy downs, things like that. You can see it in the data. Pending sales. Okay. Down basically 10%. Closed sales up just slightly, at 6%. Days on market, 31. Let's go to monthly, see if it changes it. Nope, that just goes to 35. Month supply of pending, 2 months, not an oversupply. Percent of original list price, 99.9. See, this is one of the cool things also about new construction is new construction, they get their price. They totally get their price. My friend Guy, what's that commercial property worth you helped me sell a few years ago at 607 Columbia? 607 Columbia. Let's look that up in tax records so I can remember exactly how big that is. So if you're going to be an investor, or a deal maker, you got to know how to get into tax records. So this is how you get into tax records here in Snohomish County. You can literally type in 607, C, and then a wild card, go parcel info, 607 Columbia. Okay, owned by someone in Kirkland. Tax assessed today for $521. And it is a 2,800 foot little warehouse building. All right, let's open SEBA together. We're gonna dig through this one together real quick. Member login. Let me in. Yeah, it's me. Log me in. You got to deal with my sound effects too as you're doing this. All right, we'll go into search commercial listings. We're going to go into property type. We're going to go to for sale. We're going to look at industrial. And we're going to scroll in. We're going to go in tight first. Okay, like real tight. What do we got in this area? That's really big. That's 45,000 square feet. This one's on beach. So look at this. This one right here on beach is 6,700 square feet. Currently rented. Sometimes they have a nice little flyer attached to these things that makes them all pretty. Yeah. On a certain level, if you think about this one, let me open up my calculator. That one right there is $1,050,000 divided by 6,172, so about $170 a foot. And then our subject property was 2,832. So let's go back to the calculator. $170 a foot times 2,832. Based on that math, that comes in at about 500, which is slightly below the tax assessed value. Okay. So that's just running it on a price per square foot. Let's see what else is available. Don't see anything smaller in the local area. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take off the for sale. We're going to slap on the solds. We're going to come over here to the date sold, and we're going to go look back over a year ago, starting in 2024. The reason we got to do that is there's never as much data in the commercial market. And if we're doing this for a client, we're actually going to dig through the MLS. We're going to dig through Craigslist. We're going to dig through Facebook. We're going to look at all of them. Downtown Everett, 1.2 for 6,200 square feet. This one right here, also in Everett, 2,200 square feet, 429, 4,000. Ooh, look at that. I mean, that's kind of similar to that property. In Everett though, so it's going to be a little bit more in Everett. A little bit bigger property. But so that sold for 1,150,000 divided by 39.36, 292 a square foot times 2,832. That says 827. 827 divided by the 481, 7,882. Oops, I did that wrong. I need to go 827, 439 plus 481, 788 divided by 2. So if I look at the blend of those two comps, and once again, we'd probably look at more, that says 650. I feel very comfortable just kind of, browsing around and looking. So look at this one. Oh, look at that one. Oh, winner, winner, chicken dinner. Look at that. That just happened too, right there in May. 850. Buyer has 2 loans from Heritage Bank and a second loan. I mean, really, let's look through these photos just to, they didn't give us enough photos. Bummer. That one sold for 850. So, I mean, shooting from the hip without doing much more research, guy, I'm going to say that building today is worth anywhere between 650 to 850, So let's call it 700 to 850. I feel pretty comfortable with that today, without like doing just an absolute ton of research. It's pretty crazy though. The commercial market in our area has still been going very strong. I know the old Skate Inn sold again here last July for 1.45 million. I think that eventually that thing's going to get bulldozed because it sits on so much land, and that's what creates a lot of opportunity. Well, that is what I have for today, unless anyone else has any questions or anything that they'd like to talk about. Thank you for hanging out with me. Follow me along on this wonderful real estate journey. Hit that subscribe button. Share this with someone who needs to understand the market. And if you're watching this on the replay, drop any specific questions or comments that you may have just in the comment section, and I'll make sure to go back through and answer them for you. All right. Thanks for hanging out.